arrived. February 24, 4 a.m., after 20 years. At one point, the house, it says, rose almost to a man and turned toward Wilberforce in a burst of parliamentary cheers. Suddenly, above the roar of "Hear, hear!" and quite out of order, 3 hurrahs echoed and echoed and echoed as he sat, head bowed and tears streaming down his face. Ayes, 283. Noes, 16. Majority for abolition, 267. February 24, 1807. That was the first 20 years of his battle. Because all that had been settled was the legal standing of the trade, not slavery. The new battle begins. He didn't miss the celebration, however. Some of you have read the stories about this evening. I mean, it's 4 a.m. in the morning. It's snowing outside. These guys are frolicking like children. He turns to Henry Thornton, his best friend, slaps him on the back and says, "Well, Henry, what shall we abolish next?" By the way, his answer later that night was the lottery. The lottery. He didn't make that his life goal, but that's the word that came out of his mouth as a possibility. William Cooper, the poet, friend of John Newton, wrote a sonnet for Wilberforce that begins like this, to give him tribute for this. Thy country, Wilberforce, with just disdain, hears thee by cruel men and impious called fanatic. For thy zeal to loose the enthralled from exile, public sale, and slavery's chain, friend of the poor, the wronged, the fetter galled, fear not lest such as thine be vain. William J. was a pastor in the Sinting Church and a good friend of Wilberforce. He wrote, his disinterested, self-denying, laborious, undeclining efforts in the cause of justice and humanity will call down blessings of millions, and ages yet to come will glory in his memory. And that's true. I do so today. Now let us analyze together for a few minutes his perseverance, because this is what has gripped me in reading this man's life. I want to be like this, don't you? Whatever cause you take up, and I hope you take up the one we're about this weekend and others. I preached on Martin Luther King weekend on racial justice. I preached on the next weekend on justice for the unborn. And I argued at root their personhood issues, and therefore one who cares about one ought to care about the other. I wanted my people to become coronary Christians, not adrenal Christians. Adrenaline gives you a spurt for a moment, and then when it retreats, you fall exhausted. Coronary Christians are Christians like your heart. Lub-dub, 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 morning, afternoon, night, day after day, week after week, month after month. year after year, decade after decade. It is the most quiet, wonderful servant in your life. Never gets bent out of shape by your attitude. Might speed up or slow down, but it never takes a day off and says, I quit, change your attitude. Not going to serve you anymore, don't like your attitude. Your heart just keeps going on serving you and serving you. Like Wilberforce served England and served England and served the African American. Just African in his day. They didn't make it to America, most of them. Got to West Indies. Let's talk about his perseverance for a minute. In 1804, 3 years before the victory came for that first phase in the battle, somebody pointed out to him that something really encouraging had happened by way of somebody's election and change of vote. And he said, I have been so often disappointed that I rejoice with trembling and shall scarcely dare to be confident until I see the order in the Gazette. In other words, he had been knocked down so many times by hoped-for victory that never became victory, that he had become an even-keeled. I'm not going to get excited about prospects. I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm doing here. His adversaries saw this in him and trembled. One of them complained, Wilberforce jumped up whenever he was knocked down. A more creative adversary said it like this: it is necessary to watch him, as he is blessed with a very sufficient quantity of that enthusiastic spirit which so far from yielding that it grows more vigorous from blows. In other words, you knock him down, he gets up stronger. What are you going to do with somebody like that? Can't knock him down, he gets up stronger. Leave him up, he grows stronger. John Wesley was 87 years old in 1790, right after this battle began. He wrote to Wilberforce, unless God has raised you up for this very thing, you will be worn out by the opposition of man and devils. But if God be for you, who can be against you? 2 years later, he wrote, I daily become more sensible that my work must be effected by constant and regular exertions rather than sudden and violent ones. Are there any Wilberforces in this room? I pray hundreds. Now say that again so you can all pray that God would make you this way. I came to see that my work in the cause of abolition must be effected by constant, regular exertions rather than sudden, violent ones. So when you go home, brothers, here we had a sudden, violent one. Now, the test is, will we become the constant, exerting ones? Will we be lub-dub, lovers of justice, or will we be adrenal lovers of justice? On his 41st birthday, 1800, you know you do serious things in the year 1800, serious things when centuries turn, don't you? You take stock of your life, and on your birthdays, he wrote, O Lord, purify my soul from all its stains, warm my heart with the love of Thee, animate my sluggish nature, and fix my inconstancy and volatility, that I may not be weary in well-doing. Now, to make you see the wonder of this man's perseverance in the cause of racial justice for those 20 years, and then the next 20, he died in 1833. The first victory was won in 1807. The last victory was won in the decisive vote to make slavery illegal 3 days before he died.